Mm-hmm.
Is that clear? Yes. Okay, I'm just going to set now with class. Okay.
How do I? Out of here, sir.
God is great. God is good.
So, I want to go to one slide in my. It's not open yet.
Are you having on your stick?
Yeah, I have it on the stick. Okay. Yeah. Cell division. All right. Yeah. No, it's not shared. Okay. Okay. Inheritance. So yesterday we spoke a bit on cell division, about inheritance thing, but today we're just going to look into it more in detail and look at a few definitions: inheritance of sex, how one becomes a female and the other becomes a male, and then protein synthesis, just a bit on that, and then more in detail with regard to cell division, specifically looking into meiosis and mitosis again, and then inheritance, monohybrid inheritance, co-dominance, and linked characteristics. Okay, so I think some of these things we've already learned from grade 9, some of them, not all. Okay, defining inheritance in related terms. Okay, in your biology textbook, they are divided into different sections of meiosis, asexual and sexual reproduction, sex, and all those things. So they are divided like that, but it's actually the same thing. So inheritance is a transmission of genetic information from generation to generation. That means I still have genes from my grandmothers and grandfathers. That those information have been passed on from one generation to the next. Of course, the ones that I have right now, I have a portion of my grandmother and I have a portion of my grandfather. It's a whole population of my great parents and my parents. Does that make sense? So, and then chromosomes are located in the nucleus of cells, and that is where we find genetic information in the chromosomes. And we are going to look at the structure of the chromosome as well, just for us to see, because it has got, strips where you have every characteristic within locus, called the locus. So, and they are thread-like structures of DNA carrying genetic information in the form of genes. I think we've looked at that yesterday, that when a cell is not in a stage of division, usually the DNA will appear in thread-like structure. But then as the cell goes to the stage of, or starts to, let's say, want to divide, then eventually it changes, it condenses, right? The chromosome condenses from thread-like structure to be chromosomes like we know them. So a gene is a short length of DNA found in a chromosome that codes for a specific protein. So let's say I'm going to use a more illustrative figure here. Where's the pen? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to use a more typical one that we usually have. So, and in the middle there you have a centromere here. So a chromosome has got all those locus, and each loci has got specific genes or genetic information that they are coding for, right? So in this case, this will be one gene, for example, coding for eye color, let's say. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. And then this could be structural protein, such as collagen found in the skin cells, and an enzyme or a hormone, or an eye color, or the length of your hair, the height, or your skin tone, or anything of sort. So genes basically code for those specific traits that make you an individual, that makes you different from the next person. Genes control our characteristics as they code for proteins that play an important role in what our cells do. For example, melanin are skin pigments made of proteins. Right? And those skin pigments, they are proteins. So they are proteins that have been coded for by a certain DNA. So a DNA makes. Anyway, what is going on, sir? Can you pay attention, please? So what happens is that a DNA will code for the production of melanin, and if more melanin is produced in your skin, in your body, that means your skin is going to have a much darker complexion. Is that making sense? So that is just an example of how DNA code for traits. And then here we have an example. So this is a cell. Fortunately enough, the chromosomes here are condensed already, as you can see them. And then this is basically one strand of DNA. And then within that DNA, you have now a double helix where you have different amino groups or amino acids, which are connected together, amino acids, which are connected together to form that whole polypeptide, which we call a DNA strand. Now, when it comes to genetic information, you've heard of DNA and RNA, isn't it so? RNA. So DNA are usually a double strand because that is where our genetic information is coded in. With RNA are usually a single strand, because what they do is basically when the DNA unfolds, okay, to unfold to become two certain strands, the RNA comes and attaches to one open strand of a DNA, copies that information, sends it throughout of the nucleus, to the ribosomes for protein synthesis of whatever things it to be made. But that whole chemistry of cell division you're going to learn when you move for A as well. It's more in detail instead. Okay. Alleles are different variations of a particular gene. For example, ABO gene for blood group has types. Type has three. Okay, the ABO gene for blood group type has three alleles. That is the A, the B, and the O group. Okay, so that means if you have this kind of a gene as a blood group, you can donate blood for an A group person, or a B, and for an O, because you have all the genes. Okay, but you can as well receive from those people that have those blood groups. I think this is the best blood group you can have. Okay, then we have diploid and haploid nucleus. I think we already spoke about that yesterday. Diploid cells. When you're talking about diploid cells, we are referring to cells with two sets of chromosomes, okay, or a full set, which is usually written 2N. And these kind of cells are referred to as somatic cells. Somatic cells. So those are cells in your body, on your arms, everywhere. You have the diploid cells. Some cells are called somatic cells. Yes, sir. Go to the bathroom. And then the other example is the haploid. Haploid, it is usually N, and those are what? Example of this kind of cells.
Oh, the haploid, it is meiosis. No, mitosis.
Okay, sit down. Say what you want to say.
I wanted to say mitosis.
Haploid. What kind of cells are we talking about? Monica, Emanuela, an example of a haploid cell in our body. That is a cell with half the number of chromosomes. Gametes. That is sperm cells, and egg cells. So that when they fuse, eventually they will result into a diploid cell, like you saw as well in the video. So all humans have 23 different chromosomes in each cell. Okay, this is it's a bit wrong. It's supposed to be 46. Right? So in most body cells, not including gametes. Okay, guys, can you pay attention? In in most, or in all, not most, in all body cells, except the gametes, that is the sex cells, we have 2 copies. That is 2n. That means 23 and 23, which they basically just refer to as 46 chromosomes. That is why I want to put it there as 46. Okay? And the nuclei with 2 sets of chromosomes are the ones that are referred to as diploid nuclei. And then the gametes are referred to as haploid nuclei because they only got a total of 23, which is a half. Okay. And one interesting fact, guys, when it comes to species, every species has got specific number of chromosomes. That is, for example, human, we got 46. I think fruit flies, I think have 28, not 12. There's one with 98, which I think is an elephant, but every 98 or 96, somewhere. But every species has got its own amount of chromosomes. I think that is very interesting. So a nucleus with 1 set of unpaired chromosomes is usually referred to as the haploid. That is now the case of the gametes or sex cells. To be more specific, in human it will be egg and sperm cell. In plants will be what? What are the haploid cells in plants?
It's 12.
What are the gametes in plants? Pollen grains. Pollen grains, which are what? Male gametes, right? Pollen grains, which are male gametes. And then ovules, which are female gametes. Female gametes. Female gametes. Okay, so the same thing will apply to plants as well. So that means they will also be haploid. Because at some point, the pollen grain will come and fuse with the ovule to produce a diploid cell, and then from that diploid cell, mitosis will start now taking place. Then more and more cells that are identical to the original cell will be produced. But these cells are not specialized yet. For example, when you are not when you are, it's not like you remember when you were in your mom's womb. But anyways, what happens is that when an egg is when an egg is fertilized and then it fuses, then you will have 1 diploid cell with 46 chromosomes. And then from that cell that is not yet specialized, that means it's not differentiated for one specific function. For example, the cells on my hand, they are specialized in such a way. Instead, a little bit of temperature and pressure and all these kind of things. That's why if you put something hot on your hand, you feel as much heat as compared to putting it here. Because these cells are somehow specialized in resisting heat, pressure, and stuff like that, because this is most the part of your body that you use to withstand whatever. So, and the cells that you have here is not the same cell that you have, for example, on your tongue. So you see, they are specialized. But when it comes to a gamete that has just been fertilized, these cells are not yet specialized. That means they can divide, and then eventually, when a zygote is formed and the more division has taken place, these cells can then start to specialize. But also, we have cells in our bone marrow that are also the same, like the one when you have an embryo or when you have a zygote. Those cells in your bone marrow, they are also specialized. That is why when you, for example, let's say lymphocytes, those cells from the bone marrow come out and specialize into lymphocytes. Even in neutrophils, they come out and specialize into neutrophils. But these things, most of them, you will learn them down the syllabus or down the course. Okay, so an exam tip there is that an easy way to remember the difference between haploid and diploid is to remember that haploid, the first part of it spelled like how? HA. D, we know that di means 2, so it's bi. So that is one way to remember them. I don't know if you got that. Then we have sex chromosomes. Now, let me just read here quickly. Sex is determined by an entire chromosome pair as opposed to most other characteristics that are just determined by one or a number of genes. For example, other qualities, other qualities can be coded. Many qualities can be found within one chromosome. That is, for example, your eye color is coded for this specific gene. Your height is coded for that specific gene. Your skin tone for that specific gene. Whether you can roll your tongue, it's coded for that specific gene. And all those qualities are found within one chromosome. But when it comes to sex, a gene is coded for by the entire pair of chromosomes. So one pair, the last pair of our chromosome, the 23rd pair is dedicated for sex. That means that whole pair does not code for anything else but sex, your gender. Yes. That is in terms of things like what kind of hormones will be more dominant in your body, how your body structure is going to develop with time. So that is going to bring a clear distinction between a male and a female body. Does that make sense? So that all that is coded by the 23rd pair. So in this pair in female, it usually be XX, and in male is XY. It's just that a chromosome needs to be in pairs, but in actual fact, the Y chromosome is usually the one that codes for male, and it is dominant. You are also going to learn about those two terms, dominant and recessive. That means any other chromosome paired with Y, eventually that person will be a boy. The only time that X, which codes for female, will be dominant or will be seen phenotypically, it's when it's paired with another X. Does that make sense? Okay, as only a father can pass the Y chromosome, he is responsible for determining the sex of the child. For example, in my culture, back in the days, even in the Bible, it was a pride for a man to have sons. And usually because a man back in the days was dominant in the society and everything he says stands, if that man doesn't have let's say it's only six, all the children, 6 of them, they are girls. They usually blame it on the woman. Without knowing that they are the one that determine whether that child is going to be a boy or a girl. Does that make sense? So it's a man that determines, because a man is the one that has the male chromosome. That means when this chromosome, when this pair of X and Y split, remember the male gamete, the gametes in human, they need to be haploid. So when they split, that means half of the sperm a man is releasing, they will have a female gene, and the other half will have the male. So if this sperm successfully fertilizes the egg, that child is going to be a boy. If the couple only gives birth to females, it's a man's fault. Not that it's his fault, but it's why. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's why sperms are weak. They cannot compete over the X. So it is his fault. So in the future, if this happens to you when your husband is trying to find, you take him to the biology lab, okay? Good. So now a whole set of yes, ma'am.
Now, if a woman has a beard, does it mean she has more male chromosomes than female chromosomes?
No. That is a very good question. I like that. You see, there are women that have beards, but it's not like they're blind to lesbians or anything also. They are normal. They have, in other words, they are women. They are married. They have kids and stuff like that. They're not interested in girls. So that's what I mean. So, but they have beards. What causes this? Remember, we said that the last pair of chromosomes, codes for sex entirely. That is the genes, the hormones and all these kind of things. If a woman has got, let's say, beards, that means there is a little bit of testosterone in that woman. It's not just dominant, but it's there. That is why that woman is developing beards. Did I answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
These things are hormonal, or they are caused by hormones. Yes. Just a minute. Yes.
Like twins is like a boy.
Twins, boys. Okay, guys. Let me ask you one question. Have you seen identical twins? But only some. One is a boy and another one is a girl.
Yes.
Yes. They are not identical. They are not alike. That is, for example, if I had a brother, he will look like me because somehow my father's genes are stronger. I look exactly like my dad. So we look alike, not identical, but identical. So for twins to be identical, guys, it means one egg fertilized by a sperm cell, that egg becomes a diploid cell, and then the first stage of cell division, instead of just dividing and kept together, it's split completely into two identical twins. Unidentical is two eggs that have been released from the two ovum and then fertilized at the same time, resulting into unidentical twins. Now, identical twins can never be boy and girl because they were fertilized by one sperm. That is, if it's the Y sperm, that cell will divide, resulting into two boys. But if it is the case of two egg cells that were released at the same time and got fertilized, but they will get fertilized by two different sperms. It can be that they are all fertilized by the, let's say, X. And that means you're going to have two girls that are unidentical. Two girls, twins that are unidentical. If it's Y and Y, the same thing. If it's Y and X, that means one is going to be a boy, one is going to be a girl. And I think this is, I haven't seen much of that, but I went to school with one pair of those twins actually. Yeah. Is that clear? Now, an image of chromosome is called karyotype. So this is a male karyotype because it has got a Y chromosome. A Y chromosome, how to differentiate? How can you tell that this is a male karyotype and this is a female karyotype? You look at the 23rd pair. And usually the Y chromosome is smaller than the X chromosome. And if it's smaller, then that means this is a male karyotype. And if it's the same size, that means it's the female karyotype. Does that make sense? Yes. That is very important, sir. Yes. Oh yeah, question.
It's like let's say a boy has male and female.
Guys, where are you coming from?
So they didn't get the message.
Oh,
yeah.
And then we just took time off.
They were at the AS level class, so they were confused. They asked me where we, because they went to go check upstairs and I told them when AC. Then they just started.
And then you get the
Yeah.
Yes, your question, please.
If a boy like has male and female parts.
If a boy has
Male and female parts.
So male has what?
Yeah.
Male and female.
Honestly, I have heard of it. I've never seen it because biologically speaking, it's impossible. Your biology teacher said it's possible. How? Please tell me how that is possible. Look at this. No, look at this. Guys, look at this. Look at this. What happens is when fertilization takes place, that means one of the sperm cells, let's say this is now in the case of male, one of the sperm cells will take only one pair of toes. The red ones will go to one child or to one sperm cell. The blue ones will go to another sperm cell. Now, you have cases where you have, for example, Down syndrome that is having 47 chromosomes. But Down syndrome doesn't happen in the male. I mean, the 23rd. It usually happens somewhere 21st, 22nd, first, and the 20th chromosome that fails to split. And the sperm cell, instead of giving 23, gave 24 chromosome, and the female egg, 23, resulting into 47. And that is basically what we refer to as a Down syndrome. So this does not happen.
But there is a case, tell me.
There are cases.
Yeah, there are a lot of cases.
A person has genitals.
Yes.
Two genitals.
Yes. I've seen it.
Genitals.
What? Yes, no.
Okay. The person has two genitals. Okay. Now, let me.
What in what now?
What do you mean what and what?
But a person has two genitals.
Yes, the only genitals that we know. They are only one person. Okay, look at this. Okay, look at this. Look at this. It is possible. It is possible for example, a man to have behave like a woman.
Yes,
because they have female hormones, that is estrogen and progesterone, that is dominant. I have them. I have the hormones of female, but they are not dominant. Because I have most the X chromosome in me.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Oh, but the others now they are completely out of topic.
Every male has got X chromosome in them. It's just that it's not dominant. But then, if that X chromosome is in that age, I like to use in that age, it will eventually become dominant. Yeah. So if the X chromosome is in the age at some point, it will eventually become dominant. Because remember, human beings, we are cultured. We have cases of people, for example, that have female hormones that are dominant in them. Because they were brought up in an environment where you have people where basically, let's say, raised by a woman only, and everybody around was a woman, and eventually you start behaving like one. And you give an opportunity to that to X chromosomes, I mean, the hormones in you that are already in you to become dominant. But me saying becoming dominant is not really the case, but just allow it to be. Is that making sense? With regards to two genitals, I think the case of two genitals, I think where it's possible, it's again on a male body. The female, I don't know if it's possible because females do not have the male chromosome. Does that make sense? She was female. I think I'll need to look into that and bring the answer.
Female, so then they decided to close the female part, and then when she grew up, she.
Okay, that means she has a genital, but the inside biology, that is, instead of head, because I don't think she has both testicles and the ovaries. The genital may be there, but the ovaries inside? Is there a womb?
Yeah, so she can't get pregnant.
No, but she's a girl. So when she grew up, she like developed very.
Oh, she was born a girl.
Yeah.
She was born a girl, and eventually she developed a male genital.
So she can't get people. Pregnant.
But you see what I'm saying? For you to get someone pregnant, you need to have tested. Yeah, that she has tested.
No.
Genitals. Okay, guys, can we move on? So here we have the two governments. We have the human being. That is, for example, the male chromosome. Now, okay, guys, the male, the sperm in male can either be X or Y. So that means if this sperm goes and fertilizes the ovule, which is always X, what will be the gender? Female. Okay, the gender will be female. If this one goes and fertilizes the X chromosome, the gender will be male. That is why I'm saying only male, a man, is the one that decides. Okay, not consciously, but has the power to either give rise to a female or a male, because women don't have that. They only have female gametes. Does that make sense? Good.
So it's the male. So it's so in this process of getting a woman pregnant or your body
fertilizing
a baby, it's the
let's use fertilization.
It's me that my sperm cells are going to decide whether it's a boy or
whether it's a boy or girl. Yes, but it's not a conscious. It's spontaneous, right? It's spontaneous because we have 50% male and 50% chance female, but it's spontaneous. It's not like you decide, okay, now it has to be a boy, now it has to be a girl. The only one that can decide it is God. And if you ask God, He will give you.
He will give you what you.
Yeah. So okay, can you move on? Is it clear, ma'am? You guys online?
Yeah, let's go. Just 15 minutes past minutes. We have a short announcement.
Oh,
45 already.
yeah. Actually, we
This is good. We understand the work.
Oh, just here.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any question, guys?
Nothing, sir.
Is there any question? But that did you want different sets of papers? Oh, Monica.
Yes, sir.
Guys,
Yes, sir.
we came to the end of the class today because we have a meeting outside. We have a meeting for the last 15 minutes, so that is why we are having the class short today. All right?
Yes, sir.
What if we have 45 chromosomes after specialization?
What if we have 45 chromosomes? That means we have one less chromosome. That one less chromosome means as well that you have qualities that are not coded for in your body that will be bad for you. Down syndrome, at some point, can be bad, but it can also be good that you are over intelligent and stuff like that. But the case of one less chromosome, I will have to come back to you. The case of one more chromosome, it is, some people even advise it to have, it's just that it's immoral, but usually people with one more chromosome are excessively intelligent. And these are people who use mostly in those companies because of that state. But one less, I will have to check that out.
Yes.
Yeah, it is possible, yes, because if the other, yeah, it is possible, because, what's the point? Let me just show you. Because if, let's say, let me see. Yeah, yeah. It is possible because if, say, let's say 46, that means 1 gives 23, and then let's say 24, that means the other, let's say, sperm cell will have 22.
Yes.
And that sperm cell, if it gets a chance to fertilize the other 23 chromosome egg, it will result into 45. Yeah, that's a possible condition. I will need to check it out.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I have something like that in the house. So I haven't had it. I'll show you that.
Sir,
I would have said that. I value voice charger. But I think I was so what we get is a hit. Smell it. French is so resourceful, you know. My goodness. I got that. You got? Yeah. It's magic. It's magic. I think I can enforcement. I can even change my page again. Yeah, we can. Do anything. Wow. It should not go in wrong hands. Yeah. I think that's maybe something similar because you used in the past for 1 answer. These are double. Huh? These are double. Which one? These are double. It's super cool. It's easy to a wrong person to look at the why? I can change my degree. Yes. Then I will not do it. I can change anything. You can even graduate.